The Game Awards are just around the corner, and Nintendo might have something up their sleeves for some sort of reveal or announcement. And could this be related to Switch 2, whether directly or indirectly? Maybe Nintendo has a little bit of a tip to their hand that we might see here. So what's up, Waluigi? Trent from Trentendo here. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about this. What is Nintendo up to? What could they be doing at the Game Awards? And if this could be related to Switch 2 in some way. So before we hop into that, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video so you guys are kept up to date with everything going on here at Trentendo. Let's see if we can't hit 20 likes on this. It really does help. I appreciate it a lot. And without further ado, let's hop right in. Now, as I mentioned, I think that Nintendo does have something at the Game Awards. In a previous video on the channel, we talked a little bit more about what we could potentially see. You know, what has Nintendo typically done at the Game Awards, and yeah, they do have a history of making some reveals and announcement there. So I don't think it's far-fetched to believe that there could be something there, and I would kind of lean more towards hearing at least one announcement, one reveal from Nintendo, especially with the amount of hype that they should have at the Game Awards with all the games that they have that have been nominated. They're the most nominated company at the awards, so I think Nintendo would have a pretty big presence there. So the question then, at least I believe, comes down to what will they show, and I think that this could potentially be around Switch 2. Now, like I mentioned, I don't know if this is directly. I don't think we're going to get a hardware reveal here. We have seen hardware reveals at the Game Awards with the Xbox Series X. I don't think Nintendo goes that route, though. They typically have shown, they like to Nintendo likes to Nintendo, as I say sometimes, and they're going to do it their own way. They're not going to be held to some sort of cookie cutter way of doing it, and maybe since Xbox has taken this route before, I don't know if they necessarily go that way. But I think that there's a bunch of games that they could show and that have already been announced, or maybe announce something new, and kind of indirectly tip their hand towards Nintendo Switch 2. So the first thing that I think about is Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. Now, this game has been out on the GameCube a long time ago, and so I think fans are very excited to see this on Nintendo Switch hardware. It's been a game people have been asking for to be remade for a long time, and so when they announced it at the last Nintendo Direct and gave us a teaser of 2024, a lot of people were pretty hyped about this, me included. This is definitely one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time, let alone Paper Mario games, just outright one of the top games for me personally. And I think that's aligns with a lot of Nintendo fans in general. Now, the question is, though, how does this relate to Nintendo Switch 2? So right now, all we have is a 2024 release date. Now, should Nintendo announce something at the Game Awards, I think this could potentially be something that they show us, a timing for the release of of Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door. So does this game come out early 2024? Does it come out summer 2024? No, I think this is going to be a first half of the year. I don't think it comes out any later than, July potentially. I would imagine it comes out sooner, especially having already had the announcement at the September Nintendo Direct. I would think that this is something that's going to come sooner in the year than later. Now, that being said, there has been a ton of stuff with Paper Mario Thousand Year Door that hints at Nintendo Switch 2 already with the colored buttons. There's a bunch of games that have showcased these color buttons that have been speculated now to be on the Nintendo Switch 2, specifically that align with the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom. And why would Paper Mario have colored buttons that align with the Super Famicom when it was a GameCube release? Now, should this game come out, in the summertime, and maybe we get an announcement for the summertime, does that line up with a release timing for Nintendo Switch 2? There's a lot of speculation this will be a cross-gen title. At the very least, if it does come out before the Switch 2 is released, that there'll be some sort of a port for the Switch 2, or it'll have a patch or whatever. And this isn't a game that's going to need a ton of work, I don't think, to look very nice on the next system. I think it'll look very similar to what the Switches will look like. But by showing us, more about this at the Game Awards or giving us a release timing, does that tip their hand towards Nintendo Switch 2? I think it might. I think it might a little bit. Now, that's kind of just, I think this is kind of like the tip of the iceberg here. I think this is the very safe one that, there's a bunch of hints towards Nintendo Switch 2 here already, but what else is there? I think there's more meat on this bone that we need to kind of chew into. I think the next big thing that we got to talk about for games that we already know about, as I mentioned, is Metroid Prime 4. Now, this game has been rumored, announced, whatever you want to say. It's been talked about for a very, very long time. We haven't actually gotten anything since they announced the delay, and everyone's just wondering when this game is actually going to come out. Now, I think this would be one of the splashier moves Nintendo could do at the Game Awards. Showing off Metroid Prime 4, I think would get people talking about Nintendo a little bit. This, like I said, this is a game that's been kind of just been sitting there for a while, that no one's really known what's going on, where we're at with it. And I think if Nintendo showcased this here and it just looks like it's running super smooth, maybe they show it off on Nintendo Switch 2 hardware, I think that's how they make a statement here. And I think, like I said, I think this is how that ties into Nintendo Switch 2. Should Metroid Prime 4 be shown off? If this game, is really going to be a cross-gen game like we think it is, why wouldn't you show the Switch 2 versions of the trailer or the gameplay or whatever you end up showing? Because it's obviously going to be much better than what the Switch, will be able to do. So I think that if we get Metroid Prime 4, I think there's going to be a lot of talk about what the game looks like, because I think Nintendo shows they're going to put their best foot forward. They're not going to show a subpar version of a game or of a trailer or whatever the case may be. And if the best version of Metroid Prime 4 trailer is on Nintendo Switch 2 hardware, that's what they're going to run with. And I think there's going to be a ton of speculation and people breaking it down that if this is what they actually show, what is this running on? How is it getting to look so smooth? And potentially giving us an insight to what we could expect with Nintendo Switch 2, which I think would be huge. And this is definitely one of those games that I would personally believe is going to be one of the launch titles, or very close to that, of Nintendo Switch 2, just because of how long it's been since we haven't heard anything. And I think this will be a very big title, with a first-person shooter. Those are typically some pretty heavy hitters, and Metroid being, I think, Nintendo's best version of that, Metroid Prime 4, would give us a very good insight into Nintendo Switch 2, I think. Now, the last two are totally new games. There has been speculation, there's been rumors. Nothing has officially been announced. But again, I think this is a very similar take to Metroid Prime 4, where should they show something along these next two, do they show it on Switch 2 hardware? And that being a new 3D Mario or the rumored Ocarina of Time remake. I think similar to the Metroid Prime 4 situation, should Nintendo show off one of these two games as well, they're not going to want to show off a subpar version of the game. They're going to show it off in the best light, at the biggest stage with so many people watching. I think those two would also be very big reveals for Nintendo. And I don't know if there's anything bigger personally than one of those two. 3D Mario, Nintendo's biggest character, biggest IP, and if you throw in Ocarina of Time, we just had one of the best Zelda games selling ever. I would imagine this will end up going down as probably one of the best selling games ever for Nintendo. I don't know if it passes Breath of the Wild, but it'll get pretty darn close. And with the Zelda hype as big as it is right now, do you go back to one of your best Zelda games before Breath of the Wild, before Tears of the Kingdom? This is what, this is the first 3D Zelda game. This is what really took Zelda to new heights, I believe. Before Breath of the Wild did it, you had Ocarina of Time. So should Nintendo, want to really make a big splash outside of, some games we already know about, do they show us the 3D Mario and Ocarina of Time? Which, again, I think that if one of these types of games would be something Nintendo Switch 2 would launch with. It doesn't make any sense for Nintendo to leave out some of their biggest IPs for a Nintendo Switch 2 launch. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below, though. What do you think? Am I up in the night? Are we getting anything for Game Awards for Nintendo? Do you think? I think that we get something, and I think if it's something along one of these lines, I think it kind of hints to Nintendo Switch 2 more than we think. And I believe that should we get one of these, there is going to be a lot more hype around Nintendo Switch 2, even if Nintendo doesn't specifically mention it themselves. And I think, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I definitely feel like there's something here. And I think that Nintendo might have, I think they might show their hand a little bit, whether they want to or not, depending on what they show. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Hope you enjoyed. Making sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video anywhere you're out. It does help. I appreciate it. And until next time, catch you later.